The day after my wedding, his mother walked in with a notary, a pen, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She thought she'd leave with my legacy, but she had no idea I'd already moved the board, changed the game, and cut her son out of the ending. My name is Madeline Rowan, though everyone calls me Maddie. I was 34 years old, sitting in the breakfast nook of my new husband's family estate in Boulder, Colorado, still wearing my silk robe from the honeymoon suite. The morning light filtered through the French windows, casting long shadows across the marble countertop where I'd set my coffee black. No sugar, the way Grandpa Harold taught me to drink it. The doorbell rang at exactly 9:15, not 9:14, not 9:16. Patricia Calder, my mother-in-law, was nothing if not precise. I heard Ethan's footsteps padding down the hallway, his voice carrying that post-wedding exhaustion as he greeted his mother. Then came the click of heels on hardwood. Not just one set, but two Patricia's signature Louboutins and the measured steps of someone else. Madeline, darling. Patricia swept into the kitchen, her smile stretched tight across her face like expensive leather. Behind her stood a man in a charcoal suit, briefcase in hand, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on a Sunday morning. Patricia, I didn't get up. Coffee. No time for pleasantries. I'm afraid. She gestured to the man. This is Mr. Hutchinson, a notary public. We have some paperwork to handle regarding the family trust. The family trust. I took another sip of coffee, letting the bitter taste ground me. Ethan appeared in the doorway, hair still mussed from sleep, avoiding my eyes. "Why, what paperwork?" I asked, though I already knew. Grandpa Harold had warned me about moments like this when wolves mistake silence for sheep's clothing. Patricia produced a folder from her Hermes bag, laying it on the counter with practiced efficiency. Just a formality, really. Your grandfather left you that little company, what was it called? Something about energy? Anyway, it needs to be properly integrated into the Calder family holdings, standard procedure for all marital assets. I watched her manicured fingers push the folder toward me, a Mont Blanc pen already uncapped and waiting. Mr. Hutchinson shifted his weight, clutching his official seal. The company, I said slowly, that my grandfather left specifically to me. Oh, well, yes, but now that you're a Calder. Patricia's smile never wavered. We believe in keeping everything in the family, unified, protected. Protected. The word hung in the air like a threat wrapped in silk. I glanced at Ethan. He was studying the floor tiles with sudden fascination. 24 hours ago, he'd promised to love and cherish me. Now he couldn't even meet my gaze while his mother attempted to steal my inheritance. I'll need to have my lawyer review this first, I said, closing the folder without looking at its contents. Patricia's eye twitched the first crack in her porcelain facade. There's really no need for that expense, dear. Mr. Hutchinson can explain anything you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I stood, tightening my robe. I understand that you've brought a notary to my home at 9:15 on a Sunday morning, expecting me to sign over my grandfather's legacy without reading a single line. Our home, Patricia corrected, her voice dropping a degree. This is the Calder estate, after all. I smiled then, the kind of smile Grandpa Harold used to wear during hostile takeover meetings. Of course, your home, your rules, your son who can't look me in the eye. I picked up the folder, holding it like a prop. My lawyer will be in touch. Maddie, don't be difficult. Ethan finally spoke, his voice carrying that particular tone of exhausted entitlement. Mom's just trying to help. Help, I repeated. Is that what we're calling it? I walked past them, past Mr. Hutchinson, who smelled of drugstore cologne and desperation, past my new husband who'd shown his true colors before the wedding flowers had even wilted. At the doorway, I paused. Patricia, next time you ambush someone for their inheritance, maybe wait until the wedding cake is finished. The kitchen fell silent except for the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. 9:23 a.m. I'd been married for exactly 19 hours and 17 minutes, and already the mask was off. As I climbed the stairs to the master bedroom, I heard Patricia's voice, low and venomous. "She'll sign. They always do." I pressed my hand against the pocket of my robe, feeling the weight of my phone. Inside were contacts for 3 law firms, 2 forensic accountants, and a private investigator, all arranged months before I'd walked down the aisle. Patricia Calder thought she was hunting sheep. She had no idea she'd cornered a wolf who'd been raised by Harold Rowan himself, a man who'd built a $16.9 million empire from nothing and taught his granddaughter to guard it with her life. They wanted to play games with paperwork and notaries. Fine. Let the games begin. 2 years before that morning in Patricia's kitchen, I sat in a mahogany-paneled office in downtown Denver, watching my grandfather's liver-spotted hands shake as he signed his name for what would be the last time. Harold Rowan, founder and CEO of Silver Meridian Energy, was dying, and we both knew it. "Madeline," he said, his voice still commanding despite the cancer eating away at his lungs. "What I'm about to tell you stays between us. Not your mother, not your future husband, not even God himself until I'm gone." I leaned forward in the leather chair that had witnessed 1,000 deals, 1,000 victories. "I understand, Grandpa." He pushed a folder across the desk, not unlike the one Patricia would later thrust at me, but this one held freedom instead of chains. Silver Meridian Energy, $16.9 million in assets, 14 solar farms across 3 states, contracts with half the municipalities in Colorado. The family thinks I dissolved it 5 years ago during the restructuring. "But you didn't?" A ghost of his old smile crossed his face. "I moved it into a trust, a very specific, very protected trust with your name on it. But here's the catch. Little Wolf, his pet name for me since I was 7, when I'd bitten a boy for stealing my lunch money. It only becomes yours when you turn 35, or when you get married, whichever comes first." "Grandpa, I don't understand. Why the secrecy?" He coughed, a harsh sound that made me reach for his water glass. After a moment, he continued, "Because your Aunt Rebecca tried to sue me for half of it during her 3rd divorce. Your cousin Marcus has been sniffing around my lawyers for years. And your mother," he shook his head, "your mother would sell it to the first developer who promised her a yacht and a house in Aspen." I knew he was right. My family had always been circling Grandpa's success like vultures, waiting for their piece. "But why marriage?" I asked. "Because I need to know you've chosen someone who deserves to stand beside you. But more importantly," he tapped the folder, "I need you to see who they really are when money enters the equation. The trust has safeguards. Madeline, ironclad ones. If anyone tries to force you to transfer ownership, if anyone attempts to coerce or manipulate you into signing away your rights, the entire thing locks down and reverts to sole ownership under your name only." "You're testing them," I whispered. "My future husband, his family." "I'm protecting you," he corrected. "Money changes people, shows you who they really are. When you find someone worthy, you'll know what to do. But if they prove themselves unworthy..." He pulled out another document. "Marion Blake, estate attorney. She has a sealed file that only opens if someone tries to tamper with the trust. Everything you need to protect yourself is already in place." He stood with effort, moving to the window that overlooked the city he'd helped build. "I told everyone I dissolved the company because I was tired of the vultures. Let them think you're inheriting some small remainder, some token gesture. The real books, the real assets they're hidden in holding companies and subsidiaries. Your name isn't on anything public." "How much do they think I'm getting?" "Maybe 200,000, if they've done their research. Enough to make them interested, not enough to show their true colors until after they think they've won." He turned back to me, his eyes sharp despite the illness. "Never let them know what you have until you know who they are. Promise me." "I promise." He returned to his desk, pulling out a small key. Safety deposit box at First National, Box 579. Everything you need is their real valuations, account numbers, contact lists. Memorize it, then destroy the papers. Keep your enemies close, little wolf, but keep your assets closer. 3 months later, Grandpa was gone. At the funeral, I watched my family perform their grief while whispering about the will. 200,000 to me, they murmured, just like Grandpa had predicted. They offered condolences with one face while calculating my worth with another. I met Ethan 6 months after that, at a charity gala for renewable energy. He was charming, attentive, came from old Denver money. His mother, Patricia, ruled their family empire with an iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove. During our courtship, he never once asked about my inheritance, seemed content with my job as a consultant for environmental firms. But I remembered Grandpa's words. I waited. I watched. I kept the truth locked away like a loaded gun in a safe, waiting to see who would try to steal it. Now, sitting in the bedroom of the Calder estate, listening to Patricia's heels click away downstairs, I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Marion Blake. The seal needs to be broken. They just tried. Her response came within minutes. I've been expecting your call. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I smiled, remembering the last thing Grandpa had said to me. The very last piece of advice from a man who'd built an empire from nothing. Silence isn't surrender, little wolf. Silence is how you let them show their hand while you stack the deck. Patricia Calder thought she was claiming some small inheritance from a dead old man. She had no idea she'd just triggered the very safeguards Harold Rowan had put in place to destroy anyone who tried to steal from his granddaughter. $16.9 million, 14 solar farms, a renewable energy empire. All mine. All protected. All waiting for tomorrow at 10 a.m. when I would begin to show them exactly what Harold Rowan's little wolf had learned at his knee. The tests came in waves, each more brazen than the last. Tuesday morning, 3 days after the Notary ambush, Patricia arrived with a gift, a new Range Rover, white with tan interior, parked in the circular driveway with a giant red bow. Ethan stood beside it, keys dangling from his fingers, that practiced smile plastered across his face. Every Calder woman drives a Range Rover, Patricia announced, as if she were bestowing a knighthood. We thought you'd want to trade in that little Honda of yours. That little Honda, the car I'd bought myself, paid off in full, maintained religiously. I walked around the Range Rover, running my fingers along its pristine surface while they watched me like hawks. How thoughtful, I said. And the paperwork? Patricia produced it instantly. She always had paperwork ready. Just a simple title transfer. We'll put it in the family trust for tax purposes. Your Honda, too, of course. Easier that way. I scanned the document. Buried in the third paragraph was language that would grant them power of attorney over all my vehicles, present and future. Clever. I'll think about it, I said, handing back the keys. I'm rather attached to my Honda. Ethan's jaw tightened. Maddie, Mom went to a lot of trouble. And I appreciate that. I kissed his cheek, tasting the bitterness of his cologne. But I don't make financial decisions without sleeping on them. Grandpa's rule. Wednesday brought a new assault. Patricia invited herself for lunch, bringing along her personal financial advisor, a shark in Armani named Richard Dalton. Over salmon and judgment, they laid out their vision for my financial future. Now that you're family, Dalton said, spreading charts across the dining table. We want to optimize your portfolio. The Calder investment strategy has generated 12% returns annually for the past decade. Impressive, I said, cutting my salmon into precise pieces. And my current investments would be folded into this strategy. Naturally, we'd handle everything. You wouldn't have to worry about a thing. Wouldn't have to worry. Wouldn't have to think. Wouldn't have control. What about my grandfather's company? I asked innocently. The energy consulting firm. Patricia and Dalton exchanged glances. Well, that would require special handling. Perhaps a subsidiary under Calder Industries would be best. For liability purposes. I nodded thoughtfully, filing away every word. That night, I forwarded the entire conversation, which I'd recorded on my phone, to Marion Blake. Thursday was almost comical. Ethan came home with house papers, suggesting we add my name to the deed of the Boulder estate. "For your protection," he said, "in case something happens to me." I read the fine print. Adding my name would also add Patricia's as a trustee, giving her veto power over any future sale or transfer. "Let me guess," I said. "Your mother's idea. She's just looking out for us." "Is she—" I set the papers aside. "Tell me, Ethan, when did you start letting your mother make all your decisions?" His face flushed. "That's not fair." "Isn't it Sunday? She brings a notary. Tuesday, a car. Wednesday, a financial advisor. Thursday, house papers. What's tomorrow? Ethan. What's the Friday surprise?" He stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat in the silence afterward, remembering Grandpa's words, "When they get angry, you're getting close to the truth." Friday's surprise turned out to be the most insidious yet. Patricia arrived for dinner with a family friend, Judge Catherine Morse, who just happened to specialize in estate law. "I hear there's been some confusion about your grandfather's wishes," Judge Morse said over dessert, her voice honey-sweet and poisonous. "I'd be happy to review everything, make sure it's all properly structured. Off the record, of course." "How generous," I replied. "But I'm curious, how did you hear about my grandfather's estate?" The judge's smile flickered. "Patricia mentioned you'd inherited a small consulting firm. In my experience, family businesses can create complications in marriages. Better to address them early." "With all due respect, Judge Morse," I said, setting down my spoon, "my grandfather's estate is already in excellent hands, but thank you for your concern." Patricia's mask finally slipped. "Madeline, we're trying to help you. This resistance is becoming tiresome." "Resistance," I laughed, the sound sharp in the elegant dining room. "Is that what you call it when someone won't sign their life away?" "No one's asking you to." "Aren't you—" I stood looking at each of them in turn. "Every day this week, you've presented me with papers that would strip me of my autonomy, my car, my investments, my home, my inheritance. Tell me, Patricia, is this how you welcomed your other daughters-in-law into the family?" Ethan's face was stone. "Maddie, you're being paranoid." "Am I? Then why is your mother's estate judge here for a casual dinner? Why does every gift come with a contract? Why does your family's love require my signature?" The silence stretched taut as a wire. Judge Morse excused herself, suddenly remembering another engagement. Patricia's eyes glittered with barely controlled fury. You're right," she said finally. "We should have been more direct. The truth is, Madeline, you're not equipped to handle wealth. You're a sweet girl from a middle-class family who got lucky with a small inheritance. We're offering to protect you from your own inexperience." I smiled then. Grandpa Harold's smile, the one that had terrified boardrooms full of executives. "You know what, Patricia? You're absolutely right. I am from a middle-class family. I did get lucky, and I'm definitely not equipped to handle wealth the way you do with contracts hidden in gifts and judges disguised as dinner guests." I walked to the door, pausing at the threshold. "But here's what you don't know. My grandfather didn't raise a sweet girl. He raised a wolf, and wolves don't hand their teeth to anyone who asks nicely." Behind me, I heard Ethan's chair scrape back. "Where are you going?" "To my hotel," I said without turning. "I need to think about whether this marriage is worth saving. You have 48 hours to decide if you're a Calder or my husband. You can't be both." As I drove away in my little Honda, I caught sight of Patricia in the rearview mirror, standing in the doorway like a general surveying a battlefield. She thought she was winning. She had no idea the real war hadn't even started yet. The hotel room became my war room. At 3:47, I sat cross-legged on the bed, laptop open, surrounded by bank statements I'd managed to pull before leaving the house. Something had been nagging at me since dinner, Patricia's confidence wasn't just arrogance. She had a plan already in motion. Then I found it. A charge on our joint account from 3 weeks before the wedding, $22,000 to C & Partners Advisory LLC. I'd been so focused on wedding preparations I'd missed it entirely. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Colorado Secretary of State website. Business entity search. C & Partners Advisory LLC. Registered 4 months ago. Principal agents Ethan Calder and Patricia Calder. Business purpose. Asset management and transfer consulting. My blood turned to ice. They'd been planning this before Ethan even proposed. I dug deeper. The company address matched a small office building in Lodo. The formation documents were filed by Steinberg and Associates, Patricia's law firm. Articles of incorporation specifically mentioned facilitating interfamily asset transfers and estate optimization services. I called Marion Blake, not caring that it was 412. They incorporated a shell company, I said without preamble when she answered. C & Partners Advisory. They're planning to funnel my inheritance through it. I'm pulling up the records now, Marion said, suddenly wide awake. Madeline, this is sophisticated. They've created a legal mechanism to make the transfer look legitimate. If you'd signed those papers on Sunday, everything would have gone through their company first. I finished. They could have claimed administrative fees, management costs. By the time it came out the other side, there might be nothing left. We need to move faster than I thought. Can you meet me at 7? Bring everything you have. I spent the next 3 hours documenting everything. Screenshots, bank records, incorporation documents. I even found a draft website for C & Partners, complete with stock photos and generic corporate speak about maximizing family wealth through strategic consolidation. At 6:55 I sat in Marion's office, watching her face grow increasingly grim as she reviewed my findings. This is attempted fraud, she said finally. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Actually, they created this company specifically to steal your inheritance. Can we prove that? The $22,000 withdrawal is interesting. Let me make some calls. She picked up her phone, dialing rapidly. James Marion Blake, I need a favor. C & Partners Advisory LLC. What did they spend $22,000 on? She listened, making notes. Her expression darkened. You're certain email me the documentation. When she hung up, her face was carved from granite. They hired a valuation firm. 3 weeks before your wedding. They paid to have Silver Meridian Energy assessed. Madeline, they know. They know exactly how much your company is worth. The room spun. But how Grandpa was so careful? Someone leaked it, or they hired someone good enough to pierce the corporate veil. Either way, they know about the $16.9 million. I thought about Ethan's sudden proposal 6 months ago, the whirlwind romance, the pressure to marry quickly. Oh my God, the whole thing, the entire relationship. We don't know that for certain, Marion said gently. But we need to act. I'm recommending we trigger the trust's protection clause immediately. But first, we need to secure your assets. They've shown they're willing to use sophisticated methods. We need to be more sophisticated. She pulled out a folder. Your grandfather was paranoid. God bless him. He set up a secondary holding company, Rowan Ridge Holdings. It's been dormant, waiting. We can transfer Silver Meridian's assets there within hours. Complete legal protection. Do it, I said without hesitation. There's more. The moment we activate this, they'll know something's wrong. Are you prepared for that, your marriage? My marriage ended the moment they created that shell company. I signed where she indicated, my signature sharp and angry. What else do we need? Evidence. Real evidence. The conspiracy charge will be stronger if we can document their ongoing attempts. She pulled out a small device. Recording app for your phone. Colorado is a one-party consent state. Every conversation from now on gets recorded. And the house, our joint accounts. Freeze what you can. Move your personal funds immediately. As for the house, she smiled thinly. Let them think they're winning there. Keep their eyes on the small prize while we protect the real one. I left her office at 8:30 a.m. with a plan. By 9:15 a.m., I'd moved my personal savings to a new account. By 10 a.m., Silver Meridian Energy's assets were transferring to Rowan Ridge Holdings, safe behind legal walls Patricia and her judge friends couldn't touch. My phone rang. "Ethan." "Where are you?" His voice was strained. "Mom says you moved money this morning." Of course she was monitoring the accounts. I needed some cash for the hotel. "This is ridiculous. Maddie, come home. We can work this out." "Can we tell me about C & Partners Advisory, Ethan?" Silence. Then, "I don't know what you're talking about." "The company you and your mother formed, the one you paid $22,000 to from our joint account, the one specifically designed for interfamily asset transfers. Ring any bells?" "Maddie, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. I understand you valued my inheritance before you proposed. I understand you created a shell company to steal it. I understand every 'I love you' was a lie calculated to get your hands on my grandfather's legacy." "It's not like that." His voice cracked. "Yes, Mom had a plan, but I didn't know the details. I thought it was just insurance, making sure the money stayed in the family." "Your family, not mine." "You are my family." He was shouting now. "That's what marriage means. What's yours is mine." "And what's yours? Tell me, Ethan. What did you bring to this marriage besides debt and a mother with incorporation documents?" He hung up. I sat in my car outside a small cafe, watching normal people live their normal lives. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with text after text. Patricia, Ethan, their lawyer, even Judge Morse, suggesting we mediate our misunderstanding. I forwarded everything to Marion, then drove to a small office building in the tech center. Time to play offense. The investigator Marion recommended was a former FBI agent named Carol Pritchard. She reviewed my documentation with professional interest. Financial fraud, conspiracy, attempted theft through deception. She cataloged. "You want a full workup background checks, asset searches, pattern analysis." "Everything," I said. "I want to know every shell company they've created, every asset they've hidden, every person they've done this to before." "Before?" I smiled grimly. "I don't think I'm Patricia Calder's first rodeo. A woman who can create this kind of scheme in 4 months has practice. Find the others." Carol nodded slowly. "This kind of investigation. It won't be cheap. Good thing I have $16.9 million they'll never touch." As I left her office, my phone rang again. Marion. "Madeline, I just got a call from Steinberg and Associates. They're filing for emergency asset protection, claiming you're dissipating marital property." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Let them file. By the time they get a hearing, there won't be any marital property left to protect." "That's my girl," Marion said, and I could hear Grandpa Harold in her approval. "The wolf is awake." Yes, she was. And she was very, very hungry. 2 days later, Patricia made her final move. She arrived at my hotel at 8:30 a.m., alone this time, carrying a leather portfolio that probably cost more than most people's rent. The concierge called up to warn me, but I let her come. I wanted to see her last card. She sat across from me in the hotel's restaurant, her posture perfect, her smile razor sharp. "Madeline, you've caused quite a stir." "Have I?" I sipped my coffee, recording app running on my phone. "I thought I was just protecting my assets." "Your assets," she laughed, a sound like crystal breaking. "Let's not play games. We know about Silver Meridian, all of it." I set down my cup carefully. And I'm here to make you a final offer." She opened the portfolio, revealing a stack of documents. "Sign the house over to joint ownership you, Ethan, and myself. In exchange, we'll dissolve C & Partners Advisory and abandon any claim to your grandfather's company." I picked up the documents, scanning them with practiced eyes. Real estate transfer, title modification, power of attorney clauses hidden in subsection after subsection. But something else caught my attention, a paragraph on page 7 that made my blood run cold. So, this would retroactively validate all previous financial decisions made regarding the property. I read aloud, including any liens, mortgages, or encumbrances placed before the date of signing. Patricia's smile widened. Standard language. How much? I asked quietly. I'm sorry. How much did you already borrow against the house? How much debt did you plan to saddle me with? Her mask slipped for just a moment. The house has been used as collateral for certain family investments. Nothing excessive. I pulled out my phone, texting my investigator, Carol. Within minutes, she responded, 3 mortgages totaling $2.8 million all filed last week. $2.8 million? I said, showing Patricia the screen. You mortgaged a house I don't even own yet for $2.8 million. Business ventures require capital. Stop! I held up my hand. Just stop. Do you want to know what's funny? Patricia. If you'd been honest from the beginning, if Ethan had married me because he actually loved me, I would have shared everything, the money, the company, all of it. I would have been the dutiful daughter-in-law you pretended to want. We can still. But you couldn't help yourself, I continued. You had to scheme. You had to control. You had to try to steal what would have been freely given. I stood, leaving the documents on the table. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this hotel. You're going to tell Ethan the marriage is over. And you're going to pray I don't pursue criminal charges for fraud, conspiracy, and filing false documents. Patricia's face had gone pale. You can't prove anything. Can't I? I pulled out a second phone, hitting play. Her voice filled the space between us. We know about Silver Meridian. All of it. You recorded? Every conversation since Sunday. Your financial advisor admitting to the asset transfer scheme. Judge Morse discussing how to structure things properly. Ethan confirming you valued my inheritance before he proposed. Even this conversation, where you admitted to mortgaging a house in anticipation of stealing it from me. She stood slowly, gathering her composure like armor. You think you've won. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I've destroyed stronger women than you. Maybe, I said, but they weren't Harold Rowan's granddaughter. That night, Daniel Huxley, my real estate attorney, called with interesting news. The mortgages Patricia filed. They're technically fraudulent. She listed Ethan as sole owner, but the house is still in both their names. We can challenge them. Do it, I said. But there's something else I need you to check. The prenup I signed, what happens if Ethan commits financial fraud during the marriage. I heard papers rustling. Section 18, subsection C. In the event of proven financial malfeasance by either party, the injured party is entitled to, oh my, full compensation equal to attempted damages plus punitive awards not to exceed the total value of marital assets. So if they tried to steal $16.9 million, you could claim everything, the house, their accounts, everything considered marital property. I thought about it. The poetic justice was tempting, but then I remembered Grandpa's advice. Don't fight for scraps when you already have the feast. File the paperwork, I said, but I don't want their money. I want them to know I could take it. I want them to spend every day knowing I chose to let them keep their house, their cars, their pretensions, because what I have is worth more than everything they'll ever own. The next morning, a process server delivered my response to Patricia's emergency filing. Along with the legal documents, I'd included a single photo, the incorporation papers for C & Partners Advisory, highlighted and annotated with all the evidence of their fraud. My phone rang within minutes. Ethan! Maddie, please. We can fix this. I'll make Mom back off. I'll dissolve the company. Whatever you want. What I want, I said calmly, is a divorce. You don't mean that. We love each other. No. Ethan, you loved my money. I loved who I thought you were. Neither of those things were real. This is insane. You're throwing away our marriage over a misunderstanding. I'm ending a fraud disguised as a marriage. There's a difference. He was crying now. ugly sobs that might have moved me a week ago. I did love you. Maybe it started as Mom's idea, but I fell in love with you. Doesn't that count for something? I thought about all the moments that had felt real. The laughter, the quiet mornings, the promises made in darkness. Maybe some of it had been genuine, but like Grandpa always said, a drop of poison ruins the whole well. Goodbye, Ethan. I hung up and blocked his number. Then I called Marion. Time to trigger the trust protection clause, I said. All of it, every safeguard Grandpa put in place. Are you sure once we do this, there's no going back? The assets will be locked under your sole control permanently. I looked out the hotel window at the mountains in the distance. The same mountains Grandpa had loved, where he'd taught me to ski and to be strong and to never, ever let anyone take what was mine. I'm sure, make me untouchable. With pleasure, Marion said, and I could hear her smile. Your grandfather would be proud. Yes, I thought he would, because Harold Rowan hadn't just left me money. He'd left me the tools to protect it and the wisdom to see the wolves coming. Now it was time to show them what happened when they tried to hunt the wrong prey. Marion Blake's office smelled of old leather and justice. At 9 a.m. sharp, she laid out a series of documents that looked more like battle plans than legal papers. In the corner, her paralegal Thomas organized boxes of evidence with military precision. Your grandfather was a chess player, Marion said, adjusting her reading glasses. He anticipated this exact scenario. The trust has what we call a fraud trigger clause. If anyone attempts to gain control through deceptive means, several things happen automatically. She pulled out a red folder marked Contingency Protocols. First, all assets immediately transfer to a protected status. No changes can be made without verification from 3 independent trustees. Second, any attempted transfers during the fraud period are reversed. And third, this is the beautiful part, the perpetrator becomes liable for attempted theft. Meaning Patricia and Ethan just opened themselves to criminal charges the moment they created C & Partners Advisory with intent to defraud. I leaned back in my chair, processing. But we need to prove intent. Already done, Thomas spoke up, wheeling over a box. Ms. Pritchard, your investigator, sent these over this morning. Patricia Calder has done this before. My blood chilled. What? Thomas pulled out file after file. Rachel Winters, married to Patricia's nephew in 2015. Divorced 2017 after her tech startup mysteriously transferred ownership to a Calder shell company. Amanda Chen, engaged to Patricia's younger son in 2019. Her family's restaurant chain ended up in Calder hands after she signed papers she thought were for health insurance. Sarah Martinez, 2021. Stop! I held up my hand, nausea rising. How many? 7 that we've found so far. All women who married into the Calder family. All had assets that ended up absorbed into Patricia's empire. You were going to be number 8. Marion pulled out another document. Here's where it gets interesting. Your grandfather didn't just protect you from theft. He set a trap. Hidden in subsection 47B of the trust documents is this language. Any attempt to fraudulently obtain control triggers an automatic investigation into all previous financial dealings of the attempting party. He knew, I whispered. Grandpa knew someone might try this. He knew greed patterns, Marion corrected. Someone who steals once will steal again. By attempting to defraud you, Patricia triggered an investigation into every transaction she's been involved with. The SEC will be very interested in how she's been structuring these family asset transfers. I thought about Rachel, Amanda, Sarah, and the others, women who'd loved Calder men and lost everything. Can we help them, the other victims? Marion smiled. Already in motion. I've reached out to their attorneys. Patricia's about to face a class action suit that will make her head spin. But first, we need to lock down your assets completely. She produced a new set of documents. Sign here. This activates every protection your grandfather built in. As of this moment, Silver Meridian Energy and all associated assets are transferred to Rowan Ridge Holdings under your sole control. No spouse, no in-law. No court order can touch them without your explicit consent verified by multiple independent parties. I signed my name with Grandpa's Mont Blanc pen, the one I'd taken from his desk after he died. It felt like justice. There's one more thing," Marion said, her expression shifting. "Your grandfather left a sealed letter. His instructions were to give it to you only if someone tried to steal your inheritance. He was very specific, only if theft was attempted." She handed me an envelope, my name written in Grandpa's shaky handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers. "My little wolf." If you're reading this, then someone has shown their true nature by trying to take what I left you. I'm sorry you had to learn about human greed this way, but not surprised. Money doesn't change people, it reveals them. By now, Marion has explained the protections I put in place. Use them all. Show no mercy to those who tried to rob you, because they would show none to you. The assets I left aren't just money, they're power. Power to build, to create, to protect yourself and others. But here's my final gift. In Safety Deposit Box 379, not 579 as I told you before at Colorado National Bank, you'll find something else. Documents showing that Silver Meridian is actually worth more than the $16.9 million they discovered. Much more. I hid the real valuations behind shell companies even my own accountants didn't know about. The $17 million was bait, little wolf, the honey to draw out the bears. The real treasure is what they never found. Use it wisely, build something beautiful, and remember, wolves don't apologize for having teeth. All my love, Grandpa Harold. P.S. Patricia Calder tried to buy Silver Meridian from me in 2018. I refused. I suspect she's never forgotten that. Consider this my delayed response to her offer. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Even in death, Harold Rowan was protecting me, teaching me, showing me how to win wars I didn't know I was fighting. "There's more money," I told Marion. "Hidden assets. Box 379 at Colorado National." Her eyes widened. "How much more?" "I don't know, but knowing Grandpa..." I folded the letter carefully. Enough to make Patricia's entire empire look like a lemonade stand. Marion immediately got on the phone with the bank, arranging access. Within an hour, we were in a private viewing room, staring at documents that made my hands shake. The real value of Silver Meridian Energy, including hidden subsidiaries, international patents, and future contracts, $47.3 million. My God, Marion breathed. He built an empire and made it invisible. Until someone tried to steal the piece he let them see. I finished. We spent the next 3 hours documenting everything, transferring titles, securing assets. By the time we finished, I wasn't just protected, I was untouchable. Every dollar, every contract, every piece of intellectual property locked away behind legal walls that would take an army to breach. As we prepared to leave, Marion's phone rang. She listened, her face cycling through surprise, satisfaction, and something that looked like awe. "That was the FBI," she said after hanging up. "They've frozen C and Partners Advisory's accounts pending investigation. Apparently, someone sent them a very detailed package of evidence about Patricia's previous schemes. They're opening cases on all 7 women." I thought about Carol Pritchard, my investigator, and smiled. Imagine that. "Madeline," Marion touched my arm gently. "You know this means war. Patricia won't go down without a fight." I looked at the boxes of documents, the proof of my grandfather's genius and Patricia's greed, the weight of $47 million in carefully protected assets. "Then war it is," I said. "But this time, the wolf has all the weapons." As we left the bank, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a message from Rachel Winters, the first of Patricia's victims. "I heard you're the one who escaped. Thank you for fighting back. We all will now." I typed back, "Together. She'll never do this again." Because Grandpa was right. Power wasn't just for protecting yourself. It was for protecting others from the predators who thought kindness was weakness and love was leverage. Patricia Calder had tried to steal my inheritance. Instead, she'd activated an army. The Denver County Courthouse at 10:45 a.m. looked like any other Tuesday morning lawyers hustling with their briefcases, clerks managing files, justice grinding forward at its usual pace. Ethan stood at the filing window on the third floor, papers in hand, that entitled confidence still clinging to him like expensive cologne. I watched from the coffee shop across the street through binoculars. Yes, binoculars. Carol Pritchard had taught me that surveillance wasn't about being invisible, it was about being forgettable. A birdwatcher in downtown Denver raised fewer eyebrows than someone obviously trying to hide. My phone buzzed. Marion's text. He's at window 7, filing now. Through the lens, I saw Ethan's face change. Confusion, disbelief, then panic as the clerk shook her head and pointed to her computer screen. He pulled out his phone, jabbing at it frantically. My phone rang immediately. Patricia. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, another call. Ethan this time. Also ignored. Then Marion called. This one I answered. You should have seen it, she said, barely containing her laughter. He tried to file for asset consolidation, but the system flagged it immediately. Every asset he listed as marital property came up as locked under fraud investigation. The clerk told him he'd need a federal judge's order to even look at the paperwork. And Silver Meridian doesn't exist in any searchable database anymore. As far as the court system knows, you're a moderately successful consultant with a Honda Civic and $40,000 in savings. Everything else is invisible. I watched Ethan storm out of the courthouse, his phone pressed to his ear, probably calling Mommy. What's their next move? Patricia's lawyer already called. They want an emergency meeting. Something about clearing up this misunderstanding before it gets out of hand. Schedule it, I said, but at my lawyer's office, my turf, my rules. That afternoon at 3 p.m., I sat in the conference room of Blake, Huxley and Associates, watching Patricia and Ethan file in with their lawyer, James Steinberg. Patricia wore Chanel-like armor, but I could see the cracks her lipstick slightly smudged, her fingers drumming against her purse. Let's cut to the chase, Steinberg began. This has all been a terrible misunderstanding. My clients are willing to— Stop, Marion interrupted. Before you continue, you should know this meeting is being recorded. You should also know that the FBI served warrants on C and Partners Advisory this morning. So, whatever you're about to propose, consider it carefully. Patricia's mask finally cracked completely. You vindictive little— Patricia! Steinberg's warning was sharp. She composed herself with visible effort. We're prepared to offer a clean divorce. Ethan keeps the house. You keep your grandfather's company. Simple. The house with 3 fraudulent mortgages, I asked mildly. The one you borrowed $2.8 million against. Ethan's head snapped toward his mother. 3 mortgages. You said it was one refinance for the renovation. Ethan, be quiet, Patricia hissed. But the damage was done. I pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. Mortgage documents, all filed last week, all listing Ethan as sole owner when the property is actually in joint names. That's fraud. Ethan. Federal fraud. His face had gone pale. I didn't know. Mom handled everything. Of course she did. I turned to Patricia. Just like you handled Rachel Winters' startup, and Amanda Chen's restaurants, and Sarah Martinez's. Enough. Patricia stood. What do you want? Nothing, I said simply. I want absolutely nothing from you. Sign the divorce papers, dissolve C and Partners Advisory, and we all walk away. Or, I pulled out a second folder. This goes to the FBI. 7 counts of fraud, conspiracy, theft by deception. Your choice. Steinberg was sweating now. My client needs time to review. No, I said. She's had years to review while she was destroying other women's lives. She has 5 minutes. The room fell silent except for the ticking clock. Patricia stared at me with pure hatred. But I saw something else too, respect. Maybe even fear. She'd finally realized what Grandpa had known all along. The quiet ones aren't weak. They're waiting. "Fine," she spat. "We'll sign." Marion produced the papers with practiced efficiency: divorce decree, dissolution of C and partners, quitclaim on any marital assets, agreement not to pursue any claims against Silver Meridian or Rowan Ridge Holdings. As Ethan signed, his hand shaking, he looked up at me. "I did love you. In the beginning, before Mom got involved. It was real." "Maybe," I said, "but you chose her money over my heart. That's all that matters now." Patricia signed last, her signature sharp enough to tear the paper. As she stood to leave, she paused at the door. "Your grandfather was a bastard," she said quietly. "He could have sold to me, made us both rich. Instead, he held on to that company out of spite." "No," I corrected. "He held on to it for me, because he knew someday someone like you would try to take it, and he wanted me to be ready." She left without another word, Steinberg scrambling after her. Ethan lingered, looking lost. "Maddie, my lawyer will handle the rest," I said. "Goodbye, Ethan." After they left, Marion and I sat in comfortable silence. Then she pulled out a bottle of champagne from her desk drawer. "Your grandfather left this too," she said, "with instructions to open it when you won your first corporate battle." We toasted Harold Rowan, who'd seen this coming from beyond the grave and prepared his granddaughter for war. That evening, I met with the other women Patricia had destroyed: Rachel, Amanda, Sarah, and 4 others, gathered in a private dining room at the Brown Palace Hotel. We shared stories, compared scars, planned lawsuits. "She counted on our silence," Rachel said, "on our shame and isolation." "Well, she counted wrong." Amanda raised her glass. "To Maddie, who broke the pattern." "To all of us," I corrected. "For surviving, for fighting back, for warning the next woman who falls for a Calder smile." As I drove home to my hotel that night, my phone had dozens of missed calls from Ethan, Patricia, their lawyers, their friends. I deleted them all without listening. The war was over. I'd won. But more importantly, I'd won the right way. Not by becoming like Patricia, not by destroying for the sake of destruction. I'd protected what was mine and helped others reclaim what was theirs. Grandpa would have been proud. In my hotel room, I pulled out his letter one more time, focusing on the last line: "Wolves don't apologize for having teeth." No, I thought, but they choose carefully when to bite. Tomorrow, I'd start running Silver Meridian properly. I'd grow it into something even grander than Grandpa had imagined, and I'd never, ever let anyone make me feel guilty for protecting it. The little wolf had grown up, and she was just getting started. The courtroom smelled of wood polish and broken dreams. 6 weeks after that meeting in Marion's office, we sat for the final divorce hearing. Patricia wasn't there. Her lawyers had advised against it after the FBI expanded their investigation. But Ethan sat 2 rows behind me, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 6 weeks. Judge Margaret Harrison reviewed the papers with clinical efficiency. "I see both parties have agreed to all terms. Mr. Calder, you're waiving any claim to marital assets." "Yes, Your Honor." Ethan's voice was hollow. "And Mrs. Calder, excuse me, Ms. Rowan, you're not seeking any support or division of property." "That's correct, Your Honor. I want nothing from the marriage." The judge's eyes flickered with something curiosity, maybe respect. The documents before her told a story of assets already divided, of clean breaks and clear boundaries. What they didn't show was the war that had been fought to get here. "Divorce granted," she said, striking her gavel. "Ms. Rowan, you're restored to your maiden name effective immediately." And just like that, it was over. 8 months of marriage dissolved in 8 minutes of legal procedure. Outside the courthouse, Ethan caught up to me. "Maddie, wait." I turned. studying the man I'd once thought I'd grow old with. His designer suit hung loose on his frame. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by something hollow. "I wanted you to know," he said. "Mom's selling the house. The FBI froze most of her accounts. The other women, Rachel and the others, their lawsuit is going to destroy her." "I'm sorry you got caught in the crossfire," I said, meaning it. "You could have chosen differently." "Could I?" He laughed bitterly. "You don't know what it's like growing up with Patricia Calder. Every relationship was a transaction. Every emotion had a price tag. When I met you, I thought maybe—" He shrugged. "Doesn't matter now." "What will you do?" "Start over. Maybe somewhere Patricia's name doesn't open doors or burn bridges." He looked at me one last time. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you got away. Glad you were stronger than the rest of us." He walked away before I could respond, shoulders bent under the weight of a lifetime of his mother's schemes. 2 hours later, I stood in the boardroom of Silver Meridian Energy, my company now, truly and completely. The senior staff sat around the polished table, some who'd known Grandpa, others hired in recent years. They all watched me with careful attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "my grandfather built this company on a simple principle: clean energy, honest dealings, fair profits. Somewhere along the way, others forgot that principle. They saw our success as something to steal rather than something to earn." I clicked a remote, bringing up financial projections on the screen. "Today, we're worth $47.3 million. By next year, I intend to double that, not through schemes or shell companies, but through innovation and expansion." "Ms. Rowan," CFO Marcus Webb interjected, "with respect, the renewable energy market is volatile. Doubling our value in a year seems ambitious." I smiled, Grandpa's smile. "Mr. Webb, 2 months ago, someone tried to steal this company through fraud and deception. They failed because my grandfather anticipated greed and prepared for it. Now I'm asking you to anticipate success and prepare for that. Can you do it?" The room shifted, energy changing. These were people who'd been coasting, maintaining rather than building, but they were also engineers and visionaries who'd once believed in something bigger. "Hell yes," said Diana Chen, our head of development. "What's the plan?" We spent the next 3 hours mapping out expansion strategies, new technologies, partnerships that Grandpa had been too cautious to pursue. By the time we finished, the sun was setting over the Rockies, painting the conference room gold. As the team filed out, energized and chattering about possibilities, I remained behind. On the wall hung a portrait of Harold Rowan, painted the year he'd founded the company. I stood before it, thinking about circles and endings and beginnings. "We did it, Grandpa," I whispered. "We protected the den." My phone buzzed, a text from Marion. "Thought you should know Patricia Calder filed for bankruptcy today. The FBI seized her remaining assets. It's over." I thought about Patricia, sitting somewhere in her emptied empire, finally paying for years of predation. I thought about Ethan, free but broken, learning too late that choosing family over integrity costs everything. I thought about Rachel, Amanda, Sarah, and the others, finally getting justice and restitution. But mostly, I thought about tomorrow, about solar farms and wind turbines and a clean energy future that no one could steal, about building something worthy of the trust Grandpa had placed in me. I locked the office and headed to my new apartment, a modest place in Capitol Hill. Nothing like the Calder estate, but entirely mine. In my pocket, I carried 2 things, Grandpa's Mont Blanc pen and my wedding ring. At the bridge over Cherry Creek, I stopped. The water ran dark below, carrying away the detritus of the city. I pulled out the ring, a 2-carat solitaire that had once symbolized forever. "Wolves don't apologize for having teeth," I said to the night air, "but sometimes they choose to let go of dead prey." I dropped the ring into the water. It disappeared without a sound, carried away by the current, just another shiny thing that turned out to be worthless. But the pen that I kept, because some inheritances are measured in millions, and others in the wisdom to protect them. Grandpa had left me both. As I walked home, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Rowan. This is Jennifer Walsh from the Colorado Renewable Energy Initiative. We heard about your expansion plans. We'd like to discuss a partnership that could help you reach that doubled valuation even faster. I smiled, quickening my pace. I'm listening. Because the little wolf was done playing defense. It was time to hunt, time to build, time to show everyone what Harold Rowan's granddaughter could do when she wasn't wasting energy protecting herself from thieves. Patricia Calder had thought she was stealing a company. Instead, she'd unleashed an empire. And this was just the beginning. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If you enjoyed this tale of revenge and redemption, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Maddie's situation? Let me know in the comments.